Hey there, I'm Miss Lourdes, and today I'll be going over some basics in art, specifically in drawing. So first off, materials. You can draw with just about any supply you have on hand, such as colored pencils, number 2 pencils, mechanical pencils, ballpoint pens, markers, gel pens, printer paper, graph paper, construction paper, erasers, rulers for straight lines, and tissue paper for blending. But I'm sure you probably already know this. If you're venturing out for better materials, consider the different types of paper you can find in craft stores or art stores, like mixed media paper and tone paper, which are a bit thicker than regular computer paper. For colored pencils, you could try using PRISMACOLORS, which are softer and more vibrant than the regular Crayola pencils. Hey, come back here! Charcoal pencils can be a bit messier, but they can also give you a darker line than a graphite pencil will give you. Which brings me to graphite pencils. These pencils come in different levels of softness and darkness. If you see a pencil labeled with a number and an H, it means it's harder and therefore lighter in value. If it is labeled with a B, it stands for blackness, and those can be a lot darker. Some artists will use a variety of these pencils on a single drawing alone. Blending stumps are rolled up paper created for easily blending things like graphite or charcoal, so that you don't use your fingers. We'll go over on how some of these materials are used later. And now for some art terms. I will be going over some of these in this video. Know that these terms are a part of the fundamentals of art, and knowing them will help you understand art when observing it or creating it. Let's begin with the elements of art. Line. A line is defined as a point moving through space. There is horizontal, vertical, diagonal, zigzag, and curly, or curved. Here are some examples of drawings by Leonardo da Vinci. Notice on the left drawing how he uses curved, wavy lines to create the hair. Notice on the right drawing how Leonardo uses diagonal lines to create shadow or value on the woman's face and hair. Shape is defined as a flat enclosed area. These include triangles, circles, and squares. These are known as geometric shapes. Freeform shapes could be any shape you might find in nature that is harder to mathematically measure. Here are some examples using shapes. The artwork on the left shows many circles within a larger circle in various colors. The artwork on the right also has circles, but also triangles, squares, rectangles, and even some wavy freeform shapes at the top left. Notice how the artwork on the left has many diagonal lines intercepting around and within the circles as well. Form is a three-dimensional enclosed space. Some geometric forms are cube, cone, triangular prism, and sphere. Here are some examples of form by M.C. Escher. Like freeform shapes, there are also freeform or organic forms. This is the hand you see in the left drawing and the human form you see inside the sphere and running around the right drawing. As for geometric forms, you can find the sphere in the left drawing and the cubes and rectangular prisms that form the stairs on the right. Texture is the way an object feels to the touch, but in this case, it is the illusion of it. Examples of texture can be woven or rough. You can draw this texture on clothes, let's say, splintery like rough tree bark, or a smooth, soft, fur-like texture you can use on animals. Here are two examples of texture. Chris Van Allsburg's drawing on the left shows what we call implied texture in the tree bark. This means it is the illusion that the texture is rough, but if you touch the drawing, you wouldn't actually feel it. Edgar Degas' sculpture on the right is an example of tactile texture, or texture you can actually feel with your fingers. The girl's metal body would feel smooth and slippery, while her skirt would feel soft to the touch. Color is made when the light hits an object and is reflected back to your eyes. Let's start with 3 primary colors. These colors will help you to mix all other colors in the color wheel. They are yellow, blue, and red. Then comes the secondary colors. These are created by mixing 2 primary colors. So, yellow plus red equals orange, yellow plus blue equals green, and red plus blue equals violet. Last are the tertiary colors. These are created by combining a primary color and a secondary color. So, yellow and orange equals yellow-orange, yellow and green equals yellow-green, blue and green equals blue-green, blue and violet equals blue-violet, violet and red equals red-violet, and orange and red equals red-orange. Notice the name of the primary color always comes first. Here are some examples of color in paintings. These 2 paintings in particular show a variation of primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, in both the women's clothing. With colors, there are also color schemes. These are combinations of colors that harmonize together in the artwork. One color scheme is a cool color scheme. This scheme uses many variations of blue, violets, and greens, like you might see in these 2 paintings. A warm color scheme uses the colors yellow, orange, and red, like in these 2 paintings. There are many more color schemes, but we'll just go over these 2 for now. Space is how the area in the picture plane is used. There is positive space, which is the space used by the primary object, and negative space, which is the space around the primary object. For example, here the primary object is the hand in black, so it is the positive space. The white space around the hand is the negative space. In this example, the cat is the primary object and is the positive space, while the black space around it is the negative space. Value is how light or dark something is based on a scale from white to black. This is an example of a value scale, which is usually used to see whether a drawing has a wide range of values, or in other words, if a drawing uses a variety of the values on the scale. The more values a drawing has, the more interesting and pleasing to the eyes it can be. Here are 2 examples by illustrator Chris Van Allsburg. They both show a wide range of value, from the darkest blacks in the trees above the house and in the shadows of the bottom of the ship. You can find a variety of grays in the house itself and the buildings surrounding the ship. And you can find the brightest whites in the glowing light emitting from the house and in the light hitting the top of the ship. So let's try out our pencil strokes by drawing some different lines. First of all, a reminder to not draw like this. Drawing slowly and with short pencil strokes will give you hairy lines when you want smooth lines instead. So avoid this. So let's practice some lines using long strokes. Horizontal lines go from left to right or right to left. Diagonal lines are drawn in a slope. Vertical lines are drawn up and down. Zigzag lines are just a string of diagonal lines. Curved lines can be tight or loose. Crosshatch lines are various lines drawn in a crisscross manner in order to create texture or value. One way you can use crosshatching is to create a woven texture that you can draw on clothes. Hatch marks are just many lines without crossing. You can use this to create the texture of grass. Contour is basically drawing the outline of the object you're drawing. So here I'm drawing a contour of a pair of scissors. Cross-contour lines are used to show the form and the volume of an object. Like this was originally a circle and now it's a sphere. Here I'm going to draw the contour of my hand first, and then I will draw the cross contour inside the hand to show you the volume and the form to make it look more 3D. Here I'm drawing curved lines to show the roundness of each finger. Shapes and forms. You probably already know how to draw simple shapes. I will start by showing you how to draw a cube. This is one way. I first draw a square, then diagonal lines, then a vertical and horizontal line to finish it off. But so you can see how a cube works, I will draw two squares, one on top of the other so they overlap, and then connect each angle with diagonal lines. I will do the same with this triangular prism. And with these two forms, you can create a house. Next, I will draw a cylinder. So I draw two ovals, one on the top and one on the bottom, and then simply connect the edges with vertical lines. You can draw a soda can using a cylindrical form. Next, I will show you how you can make a cityscape using rectangular forms, just like I did the cubes. You can imagine the base of anything using shapes and forms to help you draw a general shape. Look how I used circles and triangles to make this fish. And how I used these shapes to draw a person. Observational drawing. Practice drawing things you see. This can be an assortment of images or real objects from home, objects found in nature, and even people and pets. Here I will attempt to draw my hand. I draw a general shape of my hand, drawing lightly at first. Make sure you are looking at all angles of your hand. After I draw a general outline, I look inside my hand for any details like creases and lines. Look throughout your house for anything that might be interesting to draw. With this object, I first started with a cylindrical form. And went from there. For the paintbrushes, I didn't try drawing all the paintbrushes exactly as they were. I basically got a general idea of how they all look together and just drew many shapes that were the same paintbrush looking to create that look that there are paintbrushes in this glass. With this watch, I noticed that the face at an angle is not a perfect circle, but an oval. Try harder objects like toys. All of these objects I only drew once, but you can practice drawing one object or your hands in various different angles as well. Drawing and rendering a sphere. So for this drawing, I am following the guidelines for chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro is a concept where you create volume in three-dimensional forms using light and dark. Chiaro means light and scuro means dark in Italian. So here I am starting with a light sketch of a circle and the table, and figuring out where the light source will be coming in. So when I get that done, I start with the midtones where I know most of the shadows fall on the sphere. Since the light is coming in from the top right, the darker shadows will be on the left part of the sphere. Also, make sure the shadow is going in a curve. This will help you create the illusion of a sphere. As you can also see, I started with very light shadows, but I will be going much darker as I progress. The bright light where the light hits the sphere is called the highlight. The center of the sphere where light transitions into dark is called the midtone area. And the darkest part of the sphere, where I will be shading a lot more darker, is where the deep shadow is, or basically the place where hardly any light hits it. And an important part of this is the reflected light at the very bottom of the sphere. This is where light that's hitting the table bounces back to the sphere. Without this, your sphere might not look as realistic. So this is why I'm keeping the bottom of the sphere a bit lighter than the deep shadow section. And last is the cast shadow. This is the shadow that the sphere creates. It is darker at the base of the sphere and gets lighter as you move away from the sphere. Now that I've got these things down on the page, I will be going back and forth between the sphere and the cast shadow, making sure that everything looks the way I want it to. Here I start erasing some of the cast shadow because I noticed it was a bit of an angle and I wanted it more straight. Last, I make sure to tone the surface so it is not stark white. And I also will be creating shadows in the background. Since the light source is coming from the far right, the wall on the left will be lighter than the wall area on the right. So here I'm setting down some darker values on the right. If you hadn't already noticed, a good tip to drawing is using a paper over your hand so that you don't get any graphite or charcoal on your hand and therefore smudge it on places in your drawing that you don't want it to be. This is where I tried erasing a bit of the background because I felt it was too dark. And as you can see, I only achieved smudging the charcoal around. When I went over it, it didn't look the same way. So be very careful when using charcoal. Once you've gone too dark, it's very hard to erase and make the shadows look seamless. Here towards the end, I decided to use a blending tool to smooth out the background and try to fix my previous mistake. Using a blending step can make your values transition a lot smoother, but remember, it can also lift a lot of the charcoal from the paper. Art and drawing styles. Realism and hyperrealism. Both of these examples show realism, which is a depiction that looks true to life, but the drawing on the left is more specifically an example of hyperrealism, which resembles a high-resolution photograph. Surrealism. Surrealism can be very realistic looking, but a lot of the paintings and drawings made by surrealist artists often have unrealistic, dreamlike subjects such as the exposed hearts and the two Fridas in the Frida painting on the left, and the girl's enormous eyes in Margaret King's drawing on the right. Cartoon and animation is probably very familiar to you. Although animators such as those from Disney create characters with large eyes and expressive actions, they do always practice drawing from life first. You might also be familiar with illustration, which is usually art that tells a story, and is usually found in books. These two illustrations are from manga, which is a Japanese style of graphic novel. These next two illustrations you will find in storybooks such as the series of Unfortunate Events and of Beatrix Potter's Animal Stories. Just like in literature, the possibilities are endless. If you can imagine talking mice in human clothing, you very well can draw it. And last is a more mathematical type of drawing, which is industrial or architectural. This usually involves buildings and the use of perspective, which is a concept I will go over in another lesson. Now that you've made it this far, I'll remind you to practice, 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 and to keep learning from your mistakes. You can keep a sketchbook and draw in it daily, and draw things that you find interesting. So that's it for now. See you next time.